Hello, everybody. So today I'll be going through a geography paper with you, and I'll start by going through paper one, section A, question one. So I think the first thing you should do whenever you get the paper is to highlight the keywords of any question, and ideally you should do this within the first 5 minutes just to understand the context of the question. So here I'll be highlighting group of managers and then the coastal investigation. So we know this question will be on coast. And then this is the location. And this is their aim to find out the sustainability. Okay, and then after that, you can see they're telling you what figure one is about. And they also drafted 3 possible hypotheses. So I think when you see this, you should just take note like what are the independent and dependent variables. So here there'll be sediment size, and this will be the relationship, and this will be the other variable, the longshore drift. The second one is also sediment size, and here this relationship changes, and then the other variable will be longshore drift. Sediment sizes again, smaller for relationship, and another one will be longshore drift. Okay, so one thing I like to do when I like to use different highlighters for the keywords and the question. So I'll be using orange for the questions, and I just like to highlight. So here is select best hypothesis and justify. So as you can see, here is 2 marks. So I will focus more on, I'll give my answer, as in I'll select the hypothesis, and then I have to provide a reason for it. Usually you have to provide 1 or 2 reasons depending on the mark. Since this question is 2 marks, I think it will be good to just provide one. And then the second part will be explain how and determine the direction of longshore drift along the coast. And then for part B, they also talked about how the managers decided to collect sediments at site A and site B, which we will go and see the insert later. So just highlight the task, describe how, conduct field work, and collect sediments. Then the next one will be using table 2 and figure 1. Whenever they tell you to make reference to these figures or tables, I think it's good for you to list it out in your answer, as I will show you later. So this question will be discuss suitability of developing rubber beach results at each site. Okay, so let me clear my screen. Okay, and then the next page, we also have more questions. So for part C, they want to conduct a questionnaire survey of local residents to find out potential challenges they may face in developing the site. So explain how will be the task, and then systematic sampling will be the focus, and these are the keywords responded. And then for part D, they will ask you to make reference to table 3, and they say represent the responses for question 5 by completing the pie chart. So this is a graphical question because I think you have to draw the pie chart. And then next one is comment. When you see comment, it's important to know that you have to give your stand, and you have to comment on the feasibility of building budget youth hostels and live concert venues along the coast, and then based on the demographic. And the last one will be suggest how. So the focus will be improvement on the reliability of the questionnaire survey. So yeah, as well as their sampling method. Yeah. Okay. Let me clear. Okay, so now we'll go through the insert. Okay, so as you can see, they will tell you the figure, which figure is used for the respective question. So over here, we have figure 1. You can see site A and site B. And you can also see the prevailing wind direction. So I think it's just important to note that the differences in side A and side B. Like for example, side A is closer to the coast, and then side B is located here, and the wind direction is blowing towards side B. Okay, and then for the next one, this is just a questionnaire survey. So I think it's important to just like skim through to understand what they're asking. So basically age, how long they've lived there, household income bracket, activity, and also top concern. So one important thing to note is that just make sure that for example, for question 2, right, there will be no overlap. So over here, for example, the first option is less than 5 years, and then second one is 5 to 10 years. Sometimes there will be questions that will say like 5 years, and then the next option will be 5 to 10 years, and then there will be an overlap. But for this, there's no overlap. But in the case where there's an overlap, that will usually be something you can suggest to improve, as you can see just now in the last question. Yeah. Okay. And then also the final one will be the table 3. So here it's just basically asking you the responses. So usually I will just highlight the most number of responses and the least one. So I just highlight here. Yeah, because usually you will need to point these numbers out the most. Usually, yeah. Okay. So now that that's done, we can move on to see the answer. Okay, so this is the answer. Okay, so for question 1, the one about hypothesis, so you answer the first part of the question, which is hypothesis 3 is the best, and justifying your answer will be here, independent, dependent variable, as well as clear relationship. I think for hypothesis, it's just important to remember that there are 3 things you always need to have in a good hypothesis: independent variable, dependent variable, as well as clear relationship, as well as a relationship between the variables. Yeah, so it's just a thing to keep note of, because there are some questions that might ask you to craft your own hypothesis even. Yeah. And then for the next question is the application question on how to determine the direction of longshore drift along the coast. So the instrument you use is wind vane. And then you can also describe it instead. So you lay a measuring tape, and then you mark the start point. And after that, you throw a biodegradable orange, and then you time it with a stopwatch. And then you specify the timing. So after 10 minutes, you observe which direction the orange flows. Yeah, so quite straightforward. For part B part 1, they said describe how they can conduct field work, right? So it's better to think of these in terms of steps when they say describe. So as you can see, you also lay out another measuring tape, but here you use ranging poles to mark up points at regular intervals. And then you lay at each point you lay down a quadrant, and also use random sampling. So I think it's good to be as specific as you can here. Instead of saying just like use sampling, it's good to specify that you are using random sampling. And then also, from each square, use a spoon to scoop out the sediments, and then place each scoop in a labeled Ziploc bag. So you describe it in terms of steps, basically. Yeah. And then, okay, for part 2, the question is on discuss. So it's important to say your answer clearly, as you can see in the first sentence here. Side A is not suitable and side B is suitable. So after that, you have to elaborate and answer the next of the question. So why is side A not suitable? Because it has a majority percentage of coastal sediments, being 3 mm and above. While side B has a majority of 92% sediment being under 0.5 mm. I think for this kind of question, when you compare between 2 sides, it's important to make sure you have keywords like wells to signify differences. The next part, you can also see the difference in narrower. So it's good to always compare. And then also, after they describe the difference in sediment size, they said that finer sediments will be more suitable for recreational activities. So this is the reason. And then the next reason will be narrower. And then you make reference to figure 1 because that's what the question say as well. And then you elaborate on what is the implication of this. So there's less space on the beach to carry out recreational activities. Yeah. So basically, this is how you should try to answer this kind of question. You make reference to the figures, you point out the difference, and then you try to talk about what's the implication of this in the context of the question. And then, okay, part 3, they are just asking about systematic sampling. So you can just say situate themselves along the beach and interview every 10 local who passes by the point. Quite straightforward. Okay, and then for the pie chart one, right? Remember that pie chart must always have a suitable title, accurate pie chart percentage. To get accurate pie chart percentage, you should use a protractor, and you should always start at right in the center of the page and at 12 o'clock. Like using the clock, right? You start using the 12 o'clock mark, and then you go clockwise in that manner from there. And also you must have a suitable label or legend. So you can either have like, you can either label it in the pie chart itself if you have enough space, or if you don't, you can just arrow it out and then write the label clearly. Yeah. Okay, and then we'll be moving on to part 2. So here they ask the comment, right? So remember, you must always take your stand. So here the stand is not very feasible. And then they also listed out the reasons that they'll be talking about, the high chances of conflict. So after that, it's good to make reference to all the figures they gave you also, because here they also say make reference to table 3. So over here, as you can, they make reference to table 3 by citing this data as well as this data. And then the implication of it is they are highly likely to retire there. So what? So now you have to elaborate in context of the question. So it may not make the area suitable for mass youth tourism, which will disrupt the environment that they are used to and cause the elderly distress. And then you also, the next reason, they also cited the table reference, and then they enjoy activities and they not the same activities that youth tourists on a budget may enjoy or pay for so forth. So this is the implication. And then next one, they also cite another data. So they are worried about overcrowding and pollution. And this is likely if live concert venues are built. So this is the implication. They also use another one by saying high noise levels are a significant concern. And the implication is it will occur if such concert venues are built. And the final reason they gave is that it may cause sedimentation, which will destroy natural coastal features, and it's a big concern among the locals using the data once again. So every time you see this kind of question, whenever they say like make reference to a table or figure, make sure to always make the reference first and then list out your reason. Like every reason should have at least one reference if possible. Okay. And then for the last question, the suggest how the managers could improve on the reliability. So you take a look at figure 2 again, and then you will also, one suggestion will be include open-ended questions. And then after that, you have to elaborate, which they say it will allow respondents to put in their own opinions rather than be confined by fixed choices. And the next one will be conduct stratified sampling to ensure that they do not miss on collecting data for various groups of local, and also greater representation. So going through all these papers, right, as you do more and more GI, I feel that you will see a repetition, like how they can improve on the reliability of a survey, or like comment on the feasibility, like this kind of, all these answers here, right, I feel that they are applicable for many other questions that ask for how it can be, how something can be improved. I think it's important to just take note of that. Yeah. Okay, so now we'll be moving on to question 2. If you are still making notes